Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Zia, a clinical psychologist specializing in transgender care. Welcome to my channel. Let's discuss today about a pattern that happens to those of you who are in a relationship, whether you are in a marriage or long-term relationship, or whoever you define your relationship, as you also transition, a pattern that happens as a byproduct of transition that leads, oftentimes I've seen this lead to partners feeling quite a bit of resentment and potentially, and I hope not contempt, due to finances and financial distribution. So this video is going to be very relevant to those of you who are in a relationship of any kind and going through gender transition while you are in that relationship. I see this pattern happen a lot. I would probably even say I see this happening 90% of the time of individuals I work with who are in a relationship. And it is often a pattern that is sadly quite inevitable. And I'll explain why. So what I'm talking about is this: regardless of how you two distribute your finances in a relationship, regardless of, and I've seen people of all kinds of financial redistribution. I've seen couples where one partner is employed and the person who is transitioning is unemployed. I've seen where it is reversed, where the person who is transitioning is a sole financial, as we call it, breadwinner, financial supplier, supporter of the family, and the person who is the partner who's not transitioning is not employed. It doesn't work. I've seen it where both partners work. I have seen it when both partners work and one partner bears or carries way more financial responsibility for the household and everything else, and reverse. So regardless of what combination you find yourself in, and regardless of how finances are distributed, this pattern of phenomenon happens almost in every single couple that I work with. So what usually happens is this, and it goes like this. You start going through gender transition. And what's interesting about this phenomenon is that I find this also to exist with couples where your partner is very supporting and where your partner is ambivalent, not sure if they will continue with you, and where your partner is still with you, but not very supportive. I see, regardless of what position your partners are, this still tends to happen. So you start off your transition, and as we know, whether your gender identity is trans femme, trans masculine, non-binary, as you start your gender transition, there is going to be initially, especially in the beginning, a cost associated with it. A cost that is related first to maybe medical expenses, seeing a therapist, if you are interested or planning on seeing a therapist, seeing endocrinologist or medical provider for hormones. Then as you go on, there are social transition incurring costs for a lot of individuals. I often see way more incurred costs for trans femme identified people, primarily because there's a lot of external additional things that you have to finance if those things bother you, if those things give you dysphoria, things such as working on your voice and things such as, for example, facial hair removal or other body part removal. All of the things cost money. So in the beginning, whether again you're trans femme, trans masculine, non-binary, there is going to be a cost because you are also going to start changing your external self, and you're going to start to spend money on certain elements, things, clothing, things that you may need that will support the externalization of yourself. For trans femme individuals, for example, it will mean completely changing your wardrobe because you will need a new wardrobe. For trans masculine individuals, it's also going to be completely or partially changing your wardrobe. For non-binary people, it will also involve to some extent changing your wardrobe. There could be other external expenses. Hair maintenance, for example, going to hair salons, nail pedicure appointments, other type of appointments related to gender transition, legally changing your name even is going to have associated fees along with it. So in the beginning of transition, Before you even move into surgery, if surgeries are for you, which are then another added expense, you're going to start going what I call financial peak. And your partner is witnessing the financial peak growing higher and higher and higher. And for everybody, it's going to be different. Obviously, the financial peak is going to be in equal proportion to what your transition plans are, and it's going to be in equal proportion to how much money you are planning to spend on your gender transition. Everybody's different. The more money you are the more resources you have accessible to you and the more you want to spend on your gender transition, the higher your peak is going to be. So what's happening is that your partner sees you start transition and start seeing the cost associated with transition. And at first they tell themselves, this is okay. You need therapists, you need to go see a medical doctor, you need to be able to pay for your hormones. And then you start ranking up the cost for all other things that you may need. Clothing, like I said, clothing, it's all these external expenses, aesthetic upkeep. And suddenly your partner is starting to feel like, wait a second, why are you spending so much money on your transition? Do you really need to have a haircut appointment? Do you really need to get your nails done? Do you really need to go and get your hair removed right now? Do you really need to do it on a weekly basis? You don't really need a voice therapist. Your voice sounds fine. You don't need to masculinize or feminize your voice. So suddenly, because it is this financial peak, the partners, what I see a lot of times, are having really hard time understanding. And as a result, it's starting to spike up financial anxiety within their own inner self. They have a hard time understanding it primarily because they cannot understand gender dysphoria. It's impossible. Even I, to some extent, can fully understand gender dysphoria because I have never experienced gender dysphoria. And the only reason why I tend to sound like I understand it so incredibly well is because I work directly with thousands and thousands of transgender and non-binary individuals, and I listen to the concerns and I listen to how you feel. And in the end of the day, I'm a psychologist. So it's my job to understand. Your partner is not a psychologist. So your partner doesn't meet thousands of trans folks. So your partner doesn't understand. To your partner, all of these external transition costs are unnecessary. To your partner, all of the things you're spending money on are not warranted. So as a result, they're starting to feel tense because in their view, in their mindset, this is unjustified. Because it is unjustified, what's going to happen to them next is this. They're going to start thinking, this is not fair. This is not fair. I have never spent this much money on myself in our relationship. Why are you spending this much money on yourself in a relationship? Then you try to tell them that I'm not spending money on myself per se. I'm spending money in order to better my health. And they still don't understand. And I don't blame them because it's hard for them to wrap their mind around it because they see this cost as going up. And all they do is to focus on this financial cost going up. So as a result, what happens is that resentment starts to brew. Each couple is different. If it is a couple where the power dynamic, financial power dynamic is already skewed, for example, if supporting partner is the one that makes most money or is employed, and the person who is transitioning is making less money or is unemployed at the moment, then this person is going to feel more resentment, chances are. This is just how it plays out. I mean, I hate to say this, and I wish money was not an issue, but the reality is money is the issue for all of us because money is how I associate a sense of security, a sense of stability, a sense of safety. So as a result, whether we want to believe or not, money matters. We've been, forget even brainwashed, it's embedded in our psyche that money matters. So if the power dynamic is skewed, where the supporting partner is financially bearing more responsibility, then they're going to feel more resentment. If they also have less financial spread, let's say you as somebody who's transitioning is the one who's supporting the whole family and bringing in income and they're not employed, it's still going to be skewed because then they're going to feel like this is not fair because you're taken away from the household. So depending on power dynamic, the resentment is going to play out differently in terms of how intense the resentment is. If this is happening to you and you're in a relationship and you're starting to see this, a lot of times the way it manifests is your partner starts saying, this is not fair. you're spending too much money. This is not fair. And what you're spending on is not necessary. Why can't you just keep going the way you're going? Why can't you just wear your old clothes? You already came out. You told the world who you are. Why do you also need to have all these changes? Why do you need facial masculization, facial feminization surgery? Do you really need breast implants? What is the big deal? You already have some breast growth and hormones. You'll hear all of the things because they cannot understand why you need the things. To them on the surface, all of the things seem external and cosmetic. To you and the person who's struggling and been suffering with dysphoria all of your life, they're necessary. They're necessary and they're very essential to your well-being. This is the discrepancy. Cosmetic, essential. So what do? How do you help your partner understand that this is essential? One way to help your partner understand is, first and foremost, to help them recognize and acknowledge that while it feels like the cost is ranking up, that it only feels like that because you are changing things about yourself. You are becoming truer to yourself. And as a result, you're changing things that are coming into your sphere. Eventually, this slope is going to even out. Meaning, unless you're a compulsive spender and just can't have a really good set of wardrobe and you need to have 1,000 pair of shoes, for a lot of people, once they acquire a basic wardrobe, it levels out. For a lot of people, once they get their facial hair removed, they don't have to go to appointments. Once you master your voice, you don't need the services anymore. Once you go to therapy and you figure out who you are and what to do, you may not need the services anymore. I mean, I definitely graduate my clients after I feel like they have completed the transition goals with me and just kick them out of my office because there's nothing that I can give them at that point in my office that real life cannot provide them. So one first thing is to do is to help your partners realize that it will stabilize. It seems like a lot now because, well, you're changing, so it does seem like a lot, but it's always stabilizes. Even surgeries, eventually you will have surgery to modify your secondary sex characteristics, and then you're done. Now, of course, you may need a little bit, some people need a little bit of revision surgeries, but it's not like you're going to be ongoingly going to surgery after surgery after surgery. Unless you're addicted to surgery, that's a different matter. But my point is, they need to also understand that it seems like a lot, but then it comes to a standstill, and this is just nature. It's not like spending is always going to be there. Every time we are going through any big life transitions and you're going through gender transition in your life, there is going to be an element of cost associated with it. So this is the first thing, is to try to help them understand is that this is going to level up. Second is to have them understand that it will be impossible for them to understand the necessity from your point of view, because they are not walking in your shoes, because they are looking at it from cosmetic point of view. They do not understand what dysphoria feels like and how debilitating it is. So that's another thing, is to have them or have a conversation with your partners. Why these things, have a dialogue. Why is it that getting your nails done is so important to you? I mean, for me, I'm not even going through gender dysphoria, and I need to have my nails done. And if I don't, it drives me nuts. It's just like maintenance. It makes me feel good and confident when I look at my hands. I have to get my hair done. There's certain things that we as people do for ourselves as part of our self-care that is essential to us. It makes us feel good. We, depending on your aesthetic, depending on what your presentation is, it's going to vary to what degree you do that. But those things are important. And I bet your partners are doing a lot of things to a certain degree for themselves too, because it's important to them. So helping them understand that contrast is going to be helpful. If the resentment is strong, and if every time you are spending money on transition, your partner is giving you a hard time, and your partner is, some people say, oh, my partner is making me feel guilty, which I encourage, if you feel guilty, for you to acknowledge that your partners don't have the power to make you feel guilty. You feel guilty because those are your feelings. They're triggering something inside of you, but they're still your triggers and they're for you to work on. But if you do feel guilt, discuss it with your partner. also, if you feel like your partner is continuing to give you a hard time, maybe this is a good time to go into couples therapy and to revisit the financial power dynamic, and to revisit all of these things, because trust me, you don't want to live resentment alone. Living resentment alone breeds to contempt. Once you reach contempt, almost no couples can ever turn back. Contempt is a dangerous space for a lot of couples. Once you reach contempt, you might as well call the relationship quits, because that's really difficult to get over. So I highly, highly recommend, if you care about your relationship, you want to stay with your partner, to seek couples therapy. But acknowledge and expect that some resentful feelings are common, and it's such a huge pattern. Like I said, most of the people I work with will have this pattern, regardless of financial power dynamic, and that's because you're going through this financial peak, and it looks like you're spending a lot of money all at once, and a lot of times it is actually you're spending a lot of money all at once, but that all at once time period in your life is going to come to a standstill. It will level down. It will all level out, because transition is not like an ongoing expensive process. It is expensive, absolutely, but it is not like an ongoing. Like I said, you're not going to be getting surgery after surgery after surgery, and unless you want to have some huge spending wardrobe, that is up to you, of course. It shouldn't be to that extreme. So comment below, let me know, if you are in a relationship, have you experienced this type of resentment from your partner? How did you deal with it? What was helpful to you? How did you overcome it? If you are going through this right now, this video may also be helpful to show partner, to acknowledge that what they're feeling is also part of the process. It is part of the process to feel this way, and part of the reason why they feel this way is primarily because they don't understand, and because they look at it as cosmetic, and therefore they start thinking this is not fair, and it start looking at it from fair to not fair type of lens. So comment below, let me know. Love hearing all of your comments, and I'll see you all next time. Bye.